Hello, friends. Today we're digging into the 3 questions every donor asks before they give. And here's the thing about these 3 questions. The donor, your prospect, your lead, your ideal client is asking these things internally, whether they realize it or not. So we're going to get a little meta today. And it's really important that you understand their experience so you can roll out the red carpet for them and optimize it as best you can. If you're listening to this in real time, it's right before the holidays, and I want to offer that it's not too late to make these slight changes with your messaging or with your frequency or with any sort of outreach. You're not too late. If you're listening to this in the future after the holidays, it's a great place to start and refresh your strategy at the top of the year. All right. So 3 questions that every donor asks before they give. All right. Question number 1, why should I care? Yeah. If that sounds like a little bit of like an question, stay with me because everyone is being inundated basically 24/7. If we're not, sleeping and we're away from a screen, maybe we have some peace. But the average person, the average consumer is being inundated with marketing messaging all of the time, whether it's TV, whether it's on their phone, whether it's on a listening device like a podcast or some other thing. Think about even going for a walk in your neighborhood. You're likely going to see something, a billboard. You're going to see something pasted, like I'm thinking about a poster that's pasted to a telephone pole. Marketing message, right? Even lost cat is a marketing message, right? Trying to get my attention. So the average person is being inundated with all of these messages and trying to make a decision. Should I care? Is this for me? And we want to make sure that your content, your appeals, your campaigns answer this very simple but straightforward question. Why should I care? Donors, we don't want to position donors, let me say it this way, as the hero. I shifted my framework for positioning the donor as the hero a while ago, and I highly recommend you do too. I like to consider the donor as the partner versus sort of the white savior complex that sometimes is rampant still in the nonprofit sector. So think about your prospects, your donors as partners, strategic partners, investors in change. When I put on this idea of them as an investor, I actually think it helps inform the pitch. It informs the story. It informs everything in a much easier way versus making it very, very transactional or how do I get their money, right? So speaking of that, stop treating them so transactionally. Stop treating them like they are the one and only, die on this hill solution, and instead inviting them into the process as whether it's a guide, a partner, or a collaborator. You can pick a word that works well for you here, okay? And that's different because that's not saying to the donor in so many words, without your gift, everything stops. Because when we use language like that for a campaign where we're asking somebody to give $25, that doesn't feel true, right? If I don't give $25, everything falls apart. Like that actually doesn't feel true. So how could you position your ask about somebody to a prospect giving a gift of $25 so that they are a partner, a collaborator in change? Okay. So that's the flip the script that I want you to think about doing. How can I do that? Right. So when you think of your donors as invested in this shared vision, not as one-off consumers just buying a product, right? You're engaging with them. You're creating connection in them. There's transparency. And then they're proud to be part of something bigger than themselves. That's why somebody gives $25. They are not, wearing rose-colored glasses that think, well, my $25 gift is going to solve the hunger crisis everywhere or even in my community, right? No, they know that. They're smart, right? But what they're saying is my $25 gift is part of the ripple effect. It is part of wider lasting change. That's the shift. And I think when we treat people like that, then they see that we're telling the truth. We're not lying. It's almost like sometimes some of the things we say to children and toddlers where I'm actually thinking about, I was at the dentist a while back and it was morning and there was a child, maybe, I don't know, under 10, checking out. And the child had clearly had some work done and had some maybe cavities filled, things like that. And the parents were there checking them out. And the child was like, can we go to McDonald's? And the parent said, oh, McDonald's is closed right now. No, we can't go to McDonald's, right? The little teeny tiny micro lies we tell the children, listen, McDonald's is 24/7, right? But what they were saying is, we're just not going to McDonald's right now. It's not in the cards, right? But at some point, there is a tipping point where your audience is going to call bullshit on that. Your audience is going to be like, McDonald's is open. My $25 gift isn't making or breaking this. So what is it doing instead? Why should I still care? Yeah? You with me? Okay. I'm thinking about a client who I worked with who refined her pitch from what we just talked about, from being like, it's all so dependent on you, dear donor, at any level, to, do you want to be part of this change? Do you want to be part of this movement? And here's what happens when you say yes. Here's where your money will go. Here's what's possible. They're excited. They're excited when you paint that picture. That enthusiasm is infectious. And they were a yes to the tune of $25,000 gift multiple times. All right. Question number 2 that every donor asks before they give. Remember, these are subconscious. Some people may be asking them out loud. Some people are asking them in their brains and not even realizing that that's the decision tree their brain is going through when they make the decision to scroll away, walk away, say no at the checkout, open their wallet, say yes, write a check, all of those things. Okay. Taking the action. Question number 2, will my gift make a difference? Now, y'all, I know y'all love using the language make a difference, right? Make a difference. Your gift will make a difference. You're telling them that. Donate today. Your gift will make a difference. But they're actually asking themselves, will my gift make a difference? And how do you want to answer that? Yes, donors want to know the tangible impact of their gift, but let's dig a little bit deeper. Okay, so it's not just necessarily about saying $50 does X, $50 feeds a family for a week. Donors are actually asking, is this one and done? Or what is the ripple effect? What is the causal change? What is the ripple effect my investment will create? This is a big one. What legacy am I leaving? How does this gift tie into the bigger picture of the causes, missions, or my own personal values that I care about, right? They're asking those pieces whether or not they realize it or not. So let's kind of drill in a little bit more of what this looks like in practice. So let's use a cat rescue as an example. So you may say, okay, $50 will help feed a rescued cat for a week, right? But what if we actually drill into this a little bit more? And maybe what's important to your prospect is this idea of $50 not only feeding a cat, but being part of a bigger solution. Maybe they live in a community that has a lot of feral cats, right? Maybe they live in a community where they're just seeing the kitten population increase, and they want to see kitties have homes. They want to see change, right? And so showing them and explaining to them that $50 gift, that $25 gift is actually helping the overall kitten population. Because when you think about spay or neutered, it literally, one spay helps to control the population. Yeah. So really painting that picture of this isn't a one-time gift in this sense, you're part of a bigger movement. And you want to tell them what that movement is. Don't assume they know what the movement is, right? Don't assume that they know that piece. And right next to this ideology is this idea of legacy. So different people have different philanthropic goals, okay? And different interests. Many people think about their legacy and they think about the world they want to leave behind or the world they want to see, right? I think about my legacy of what do I hope is true in 40 years or 50 years, right? What does that version look like? What do I hope when I'm an old lady? What do I hope that world looks like? And how does my $50 gift to an organization help make that possible? Not every organization in the world is going to fit into that bucket of my own hopes, my own dreams for legacy. So when you think about your audience, whether it's a cat rescue, whether it's an organization that serves homelessness, whether it's maybe environmental issues, you really want to drill into somebody who gives towards climate change is really thinking about legacy. They're really thinking about legacy. And I would argue that you could tell them some flavor of, we get it. A $50 gift is not going to solve the climate change crisis. However, here's what you're laying the runway for. Here's how you're joining the movement. Now, we're not devaluing their gift. We're showing them a greater gift. It's almost what if we positived that? And we said, if you gave $50 today and 10 of your friends gave $50 today, here's what that collective change would warrant. Here's what that collective change would do. And you could have an entire movement, an entire fundraising campaign, an entire social campaign that talked about collective change and why it's so important that you're not siloed out as donors, as advocates, as volunteers, and that instead you are part of a collective change, a collective movement. There's something there, especially for my environmental people. So here's an example of what it might look like in the wild. So instead of focusing solely on short-term needs, you want to build that into like a shared vision. So you may say something like, your contribution helps reduce hunger now and dismantle food deserts in our community over the next 5 years. I love the word dismantle, right? It's like, ooh, I see what I'm doing. I see the stair step of like what one thing happens today and how that helps to catalyze the next 5 years, right? So showing that future messaging not only helps get people from the maybe into action, into making the donation, but actually stay with you and have that retention piece, okay? So remember to stop selling immediate outcomes in isolation. Donors are tired of quick fixes. And here's the thing. I'm going to give you a real life story. There is a Facebook group that I'm in my like neighborhood-ish. And there is a very grassroots nonprofit organization, and they serve, they serve a population of mothers who are experiencing homelessness. So single moms who are experiencing homelessness. It's super duper grassroots. And here's the problem that I see that they are stuck in, which is they are always 911 urgently fundraising for one specific mother that is going to be evicted right now today. And they need $642 for it. And then next week, they need $742 for a different thing. And then 3 days from then, they need $300. And it's a little bit of like, crisis versus it feels like they're constantly plugging a leaky bucket. They're constantly in triage. Now, I look at an organization like that and they're only talking about urgent, immediate. And I don't know that they have the programming, support, wraparound services, infrastructure, anything to actually support these moms beyond a night, a week, maybe, or something like that, because it seems so urgent that they're running out of funding so quickly that I'm not confident in that investment because I see them so quick to fundraise again. Okay. You don't want your donors experiencing that. You want them to go, here's $800. And I'm going to clear this for you, clear the wait list for you, and feel confident that there is a cushion in place of the organization so that there is not always this frenetic, or emergency fundraising happening. Okay. So watch what you're saying. Like, go back and you can look at if you're like, ooh, I might be doing that. It's not that there is no time for emergency fundraising. So for example, the fires in Maui, that's emergency fundraising. Earthquake in Haiti, emergency fundraising. Floods, emergency fundraising. There's like climate related ones. There's all sorts of reasons why you would on a Tuesday wake up and go, damn, I hadn't expected this, emergency fundraiser time. But you want to be very careful that you're not like next Tuesday, emergency fundraiser, because those are when we see incredibly high churn in your donors because they're not with you in the long haul. Because how many times can you go to somebody for an emergency fundraiser? You with me? So really thinking about the action they will take today and what that will create in the next 3 to 5 years, and telling them that again. All right. Question number 3. This is a big one. 3 questions that every donor asks before they give. Question number 3. Do I trust you? Here's what no one tells you. Trust isn't built with a GuideStar transparency seal or polished perfect branding. It is built when you're willing to show up authentically and unapologetically, flaws, urgency, and all. So what do I mean? I mean that yes, you want your website to look like it's from this decade. You want to make sure that your mobile donation tool is processed for as little friction as possible. You want to have a GuideStar seal of transparency, but that's not exactly what consumers are looking for if my neighbor sends me a text right now and says, hey, will you give to my nonprofit? I'm going to do a little bit of vetting right there, then and there, right? There's going to be a decision tree. And one of the things I'm going to make is this legitimate? Is this a legit organization? Or do I think that my $50 is going to be one and done? Right? Do I believe them? Do I believe them? And so some of the ways that you're going to show trust, you're going to build trust very quickly, is having a great donation tool. That's one. Two, do you see how I use neighbor as an example? Endorsement. If my neighbor sends me a text today, if I know and like her, which I do, that endorsement is going to carry a lot of weight. Footnote, this is why we talk about a social street team, the power of leveraging influencers and ambassadors online to fundraise. This is what I teach in the Purpose and Profit Club, my group coaching program. You can always hop on our wait list. We will open up enrollment early next year. So I highly recommend getting on the wait list for early access. But that's the power. That's the power of an endorsement. It immediately says, I trust this organization. Christina, will you make a donation today? So you want to think about what are some other ways, what are some other markers that I can build trust with? So a street team is great. Making sure that you do have an updated 990s and that it's in Candid and in GuideStar and in some of those appropriate nonprofit places. But really what trust looks like for me is that there's a human behind the organization. So I think about like Becky from the Adventure Project. She writes amazing emails. She writes great social posts, and I believe her. I trust her because she is, as Laura Belgray would say, who was a guest on the podcast, she's flawsome. She is flawed and awesome. She is a fully formed human who is not perfect. She's going to write emails that sound like they were written from her. She's going to fundraise like she means it, all in her heart and soul into it, her team too. So you want to think about, how can I show up not so much as a sterile, ominous brand, and more like the staffer, the executive director, the human, the person behind the organization. And you want to show up that way on email. You want to show up that way on social. You want to show up that way in your one-to-one meetings and outreach. And what's kind of funny is I'm giving you these marching orders of how to show up as yourself versus how to show up as an ominous brand. And it would make more sense that it would be like, well, of course, just show up as you. But I actually think that you have to do a lot of undoing of this other version over here that so many organizations have been taught to do. It's like the formality, the best practices, that it has to go 1, 2, 3, 4, A, B, C, D, versus human to human, calling somebody today and saying, Glenda, how are you? You know what? I thought of you on my walk. I'm just going to call you. Breaking the rules, right, of cultivation, or sending an email that says, I had an ED, this is true, message me this morning that I work with a client, and he is like telling me how his weekend went. And he's like, you know what? I kind of messed my back up trying to get this Christmas tree up the stairs. And I'm like, awesome, human, real, relatable, 100%. I'm like, that's the beginning of an email, by the way. And there is a way that you can write, whether it's an email, whether it's a phone call, any sort of outreach, in a way that ties it back into your mission. If people will trust you 10x more when you show them who you are, the facets of who you are. Caveat being, do you need to vent in an email? No. Do you need to act unprofessional, air quotes, in an email? No. We just want to know, like, the people behind the mission, the people in the mission. We want to get to know them. And when people get to know them, that trust is magic. And so many organizations, I'm thinking about Kathy, who's inside the club, people know her so well as the ED. When she fundraises, when she tells a story, I'm already in. I already know her. I know her voice. I know her passion. And so much more trust and believability. It makes it so much easier to fundraise. So much easier to fundraise. So if you're ready to stop using the outdated rule book and start building donor movements online, in person, with influencers, with ambassadors, becoming a bold, audacious fundraiser that actually has people drawn to you. Okay, this is the work we do in my coaching program. You can hop on the list to join the club and get early access when we open up enrollment. But in the meantime, I want you to think about now and in the next few months, what can you do to answer those questions? The 3 questions that every donor is asking before they give. So you want to make sure before you send out another email, before you create another fundraising campaign, before you send out that appeal, before you have that phone-a-thon or text-a-thon, answer those questions. Why should I care? Why should the donor care? Why should the prospect care? Think about them. Think about their motivation, their interests, their values, their legacy, whatever. And everyone's going to be a little bit different, but people are in buckets, right? and think about those and say, ooh, what sentence, paragraph, video, something could I add to this to answer that question? Will my gift make a difference? Remember, don't treat them like children. Don't treat them like toddlers. Don't lie to them. Don't tell them that their $50 gift is going to solve every problem in the world, but tell them about the movement they'll be a part of, or tell them about the legacy they're creating, or tell them how the aspirational version of the next 3 to 5 years of your nonprofit's growth that they're now going to be part of, right? And the third question, do I trust you? What are some ways that you can add credibility and add those endorsements and add that experience of trust? Starts with showing the humanity. It starts with making sure you have a frictionless as possible donation experience and having a street team. A street team is such a great way to answer the trust question. Okay, I am cheering for you. I'm rooting for you. And as always, thank you for tuning into the podcast. And I would love it if you would leave us a review. You can scroll down on your podcast app and you can click the 5 stars and leave us a review. Tell us what you're loving about the podcast. And you're always welcome to come find me on Instagram at Splendid Consulting and tell me maybe a question you have or an episode you would like me to cover, an episode topic. I'll see you next time.